We're gonna go deep into off-season wrestling nutrition, and we're gonna start right now. What's up, everybody? It's Dane Miller from GarageStrength.com, and if this is your first time to the channel and you're interested in becoming a better athlete, you want to be more explosive, you want to get stronger, you want to take those weight room gains and transfer it over to the mat, make sure that you like, you subscribe, and you ring that notification bell so we can help you become a champion. So the sport of wrestling is notorious for having athletes that just bulk up, they get sloppy fat in the off season, they're eating absolutely every type of food imaginable. They get really, really heavy, and then the season comes around and all these wrestlers just start to cut really, really hard. And we can see in the beginning of the wrestling season that their performance suffers. We see that even in the off season, they haven't done the work. They haven't done the extra things in the weight room to try and reap those rewards, to try and reap the benefits of actually training properly. And that's a consistent theme even today with a lot of high school wrestlers, is don't take their off-season nutrition seriously. They don't take that step back and start to say, what are my goals this off-season and how can I go about cutting properly during the season so that all of my gains aren't lost from this off season. And that's where we're gonna go into. We're gonna go into some of the key factors around off season nutrition. And the first place that we've gotta start off with is, what are our strength goals? When we're talking about wrestling coaches or wrestling parents or wrestlers in general, we have to immediately start to comprehend what our strength goals need to be. And to understand what our strength goals should be, we've gotta take that step back even further and start to look and drill down from that top down and say, all right, what are the key elements behind wrestling? In all of our videos in the past, we've covered that lighter weight guys should really be focusing more on that relative strength, so that pound for pound strength. And those upper weight guys should be focusing a little bit more on that absolute strength, or having a bigger back squat, a higher weight number for their bench press or clean or snatch, whatever it might be. We also know that dynamic reactiveness is a key component behind wrestling. So somebody takes a shot and you can react very quickly. You can scramble very effectively. This is a key component, a key element behind the sport of wrestling that you can actually train in the weight room. And we also know that endurance is very important. Cardio can be king if you're strong, right? And then finally, we know that one of the most important parts behind wrestling training is grip strength. But so when we're talking about that off-season wrestling nutrition, we can take it back here and we can say, all right, what will transfer really well? I ideally would not focus on endurance-based training during the off-season. So even though this is a key element, I'm gonna cross this off, because if you're doing off-season wrestling and you're able to train with your friends or with your teammates and you're getting mat time and you're in the weight room and you're even doing off-season tournaments in the summer, generally these tournaments will have shorter periods. They're not going to be as intense, and you're going to get enough endurance work. Maybe you go out once a week, you do long, steady state cardio at a very easy pace, and that's perfectly fine. It's easy to train endurance when you're heading into the season. It's easy to pick up that endurance over a very short time frame, 6 to 8 weeks. What I'm going to tell you right off the bat is that this should be your focus here. So focusing on these 3 areas, or even these 4 areas. And so I'm gonna focus on absolute strength. I'm a 133 pounder, I'm a 152 pounder, and I can only bench press, 185 pounds. Well, that's pathetically weak, right? So if we can focus on that absolute strength and trying to get that 152 pounder to bench press 250, well, that's gonna increase their weight a little bit. So now we can start to see, all right, for that to happen, our nutrition has to come into play here. If we want to increase our absolute strength, we've got to make sure that we're eating enough protein. We've got to make sure that we're eating enough carbs so that we have good energy when we're getting into that off-season training regimen. And typically, when we're training in the off-season, what I would recommend when we're talking about these strength goals is training 4 to 5 days a week. And if you're gonna train 4 to 5 days a week, my total daily energy expenditure on my non-training days is gonna be anywhere between 2,000, 2,400 calories, potentially, right? This is a hypothetical situation. But on my training days, my total daily energy expenditure might be over 3,000 calories. So maybe you're on the Adonis bodybuilding program that we offer, or the Vulcan program that we have. You can click on the link down below and head over to garagestrength.com. Maybe you're on one of those programs and you're realizing, all right, we gotta train 4 to 5 days a week. We're trying to get jacked. We want to push that absolute strength considerably. I wanna go into next season, and instead of tying up with someone and feeling like they're strong, I wanna get into that tie-up and feel domination. I want to get that sweep and know that I can finish it because of how explosive I am, because we're doing that dynamic reactiveness. We're focusing on that plyometric work. But that means we're going to have to train 4 to 5 days a week. So now, if we're going to be training 4 to 5 days a week, a key component is that on those training days, we should be getting at least 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So if we're getting 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, if I am a 160 pounder, I might be walking around at 180, 185 pounds, and I'm trying to improve my absolute strength. Well, I should be getting at least 185 grams of protein, at least, to help me recover from the trainings that we have in the Vulcan program. And if we're gonna be focusing on that dynamic reactiveness, maybe we're sitting there and we're doing 10 sets at clean and we're doing 10 singles on the minute, so it's a short time frame. After you do that, and then you go and you do some squats, you need to make sure that you have enough energy to hit that squat so that your absolute strength can improve. And then later on, that squat will also help your reactiveness, because it's gonna help with some plyometric work. It's gonna help with your ability to absorb force. And so you've got to make sure that you're getting that 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. And you also need to make sure that you're actually getting enough carbohydrates in without eating a ton of junk. And that's gonna take us now, when we're focusing on our strength goals, now we can get into those nutrition observations. So once we get into those nutrition observations, like I had said, we already know we've gotta be getting at least 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. That's gonna help us improve our relative strength. That's gonna help us improve our absolute strength. And while we're focusing on these 2 elements here, we know that that's also going to lead to our grip strength being improved. And then when we're thinking about, all right, let's train that dynamic reactiveness, let's train to be extremely explosive, we know that a lot of absolute strength work can also improve our dynamic reactiveness. So if we're doing the Olympic lifts and the Olympic lift variations that we like to utilize for wrestling, now that's also gonna have a positive impact on the absolute strength. But we need to make sure that we're getting that 1 gram per pound of body weight for protein. I also believe that sleep should be considered part of your nutrition regimen. If you've got sleep in there and you're getting 8 to 9 to 10 hours a night, that's gonna help you recover really well. That's gonna help your body recover well. And if you're taking some protein before bed, now when you wake up in the morning, you're gonna be less sore, you're gonna have more energy, you're gonna be able to get more work done at the gym, and that's gonna transfer over to greater progress. I also believe that when we're talking about off-season wrestling, now is the time to really experiment. A lot of wrestlers love to just eat tons and tons and tons of pizza in the off season. They'll just gorge on junk food and they get fat, and they look like skinny fat wrestlers in these off season tournaments. Just pathetically weak and just in horrible shape. But instead of doing that, and I do think it's okay that once every 2 to 3 weeks you have a cheat day. You can do that in the off-season wrestling. You can have that cheat day every 2 to 3 weeks. But I believe if you want to be a state champ, or if you want to be an NCAA All-American, you have to take your off-season nutrition seriously. And now's when you can start to experiment with some stuff. Now you can sit there and say, all right, you know what? I really like dairy. I like milk. I like sour cream, whatever it is. I like yogurt. Put that into your diet and eat a little bit of excess of that. See where your weight goes. Do you balloon up, or do you just gain a little bit? If you gain just a little bit, now you know in season you can still handle that dairy and utilize that when you're cutting. But if you gain, 10 to 11 or 12 pounds, well, you know it's directly from the extra calories that you're getting from dairy. Not that dairy is bad, but dairy is very calorically dense. So now when you get into the in-season nutrition aspect, you know you can pull out that dairy and you can lose your weight pretty easily. The big component here that a lot of wrestlers struggle with is after weigh-ins, and they love to eat almond butter, peanut butter. Almond butter and peanut butter, they're not considered protein. I do not believe that these foods should be considered protein. Nut butter should be considered fat. That's not bad, but it can cause weight gain because nut butters taste really good and it's hard to stop eating them. Utilize nut butters and dairy during this time frame as a way to experiment and see what happens with your weight. If you cut out the nut butters and you're not gaining a ton of weight in the off season and you don't need to go up a weight class, then you're perfectly fine. If you need to go up 2 or 3 weight classes, well then eat more nut butter. And that's another consideration, is that if you're trying to gain weight for another weight class, that doesn't mean get fat. That means hit the weight and recover effectively. Another key aspect, your pre-workout nutrition. Try to play around with your pre-workout nutrition. Have some bananas before you're gonna go lift, or have some oranges, have a little bit of coconut oil, have some oatmeal applesauce and coconut oil, have some dark chocolate. See how you feel. Experiment with various different foods before you go to wrestling practice, before you go into the weight room. See how you feel, and then gauge how you feel based off of your food. And that's a good test for you to get comfortable with specific foods before you wrestle in season. Take advantage of the time that you have. So utilize these periods as ways to experiment with your food and to see how your body reacts to different foods. And then finally, what kind of supplements are you utilizing? Make sure that protein in food, beef, chicken, rice, all these things, that's most important right now, okay? Make sure that you're getting that good sleep. Play around with different aspects, different forms of foods that might be really, really calorically dense. Try to gauge that off of if you need to gain weight for a weight class or if you want to stay in the exact same weight class. And then finally, utilize that pre-workout nutrition. But the one key factor now, are you taking creatine in the off season, which you should be? Are you utilizing whey protein or casein protein? That's going to help you get even greater levels of muscle protein synthesis. I recommend with your supplements, just stick to those 2 in the beginning. And if you need more later on, maybe you need some collagen for your joints, or maybe you do need a little bit of a pre-workout, you want some beta alanine, that's gonna help you in those tournaments in the summertime. That's perfectly fine, but don't look at supplements as the #1 key factor for your off-season wrestling nutrition. Look at everything from the large, holistic, macro perspective. Ask yourself the question, are you trying to gain weight to go up a weight class? If you are, you eat more calorically dense foods. Are you trying to maintain your weight class? Well, then try to really ease up and focus in on your nutrition. Utilize all these experiments. Make sure that you only have a cheat day every 2 to 3 days. Optimize sleep patterns. And that's another thing. In the summertime, a lot of high school kids, you want to stay up till 3 or 4 in the morning playing video games. But if you want to stand on top of the podium, you better be getting to bed by 10:30 every single night so that you can recover and take all of this positive nutrition work, apply it to your strength training, and that's what's going to lead you to that gold medal. So if you want more help with wrestling-based nutrition, you can click on the link down below. You can head over to garagestrength.com and check out our off-season wrestling nutrition program. You can pick that up today, along with one of our off-season wrestling programs. The Vulcan program is a phenomenal wrestling program that's going to help you smash your relative and absolute strength while also training that dynamic reactiveness and your grip strength. And if you want more content about wrestling-based training, click on this card right here. Until next time, guys, peace.